Among a group of people, have you ever felt stuck making a big decision? Or perhaps you've felt you need to wade through red tape to get something accomplished. Everybody brings different perspectives and biases to the decision-making table. And it's been my experience as a healthcare technology leader over the last 25 years that gaining consensus and getting people to row in the same direction is very difficult. I've observed these governing bodies get pulled into four opposing directions. And they are bureaucracy, anarchy, mediocrity, and toxicity. I call these the four enemies of governance. In the book, The Art of War, written over 2,200 years ago by Chinese philosopher and military strategist Sun Tzu, one of the points that can be made is summarized as, in order to fight your enemy, you must first identify your enemy. And by adopting this four enemies framework, governing bodies can adjust their decision-making processes and lead to better and more effective decisions. Now, the first enemy is bureaucracy. This is what I call red tape, analysis paralysis that can lead to missed opportunities. Now, there are times when thorough analysis is necessary. So if an organization is going to invest millions of dollars in a project, they need to make sure the investment's worthwhile. However, when small decisions are subjected to elaborate bureaucratic evaluation, that's where bureaucracy can run amok. Now, have you ever been affected by bureaucracy? And how did that make you feel? Imagine if every important decision you had to make had to be approved by a committee. So now imagine proposing a playscape in your neighborhood's empty common area. You go to the next neighborhood meeting and you're soon made the point person because the board consists of all volunteer members. What seems simple turns complex with zoning laws, inspections, color restrictions, and wildlife considerations because there's an endangered salamander that lives nearby. And you soon find out why this area has not been developed, because by the time you build it, your kids are probably too old to enjoy it. The next enemy is anarchy. This is what I refer to as hallway governance. These are decisions made by individuals or people in small groups and not inclusive of key stakeholders. These decisions are made without people knowing what the goal is. And ultimately, imagine the project team is just told to just figure it out eventually. That happens. So you decide to move forward with a playscape. And now all the neighbors all generally get along really well, and a lot of them are very handy. Now imagine if they all started building this playscape using different materials. So some prefer the aesthetic of wood, others prefer the strength of steel. And work continues in an uncoordinated manner, and this is not looking good, and it certainly does not look very safe. The next enemy is mediocrity. This is where ineffective and inefficient decision-makings are made. People make excuses, and there's finger-pointing. Now recognize some of your most capable team members at some point might fall into this category. Adam Grant describes this as languishing. In his TED Talk on the subject, he acknowledges that despite being a highly accomplished researcher and educator, he too suffered from languishing. And the absence of joy in one's work can lead to a sense of mediocrity. The fourth enemy is toxicity. This is where organizations prioritize short-term benefits over the well-being of team members. And the lack of long-term planning leads to short-term firefights and task switching. Now, while planned long hours are needed as you approach an important project deadline, it's those surprise extended work hours that leads to a culture of burnout and stress, fostering a culture of toxicity. Now, back to the playscape. The president has now rented out the space to a family at a family reunion. And they push the team to get the job done. They now have to hire a contractor to finish the job and to repair the substandard work. Costs spiral out of control, and people are pointing fingers at each other. And now, ultimately, this playscape does get completed, but now all the neighbors that used to get along are now spending time at their house and not at this new playscape. Now, let me show you how these four enemies interact. With bureaucracy, well, this is all rules. You must follow these rules, or else that bad thing that happened last time is going to happen again. The opposing force is anarchy. This is what I refer to as anarchy. This is risky, and this is where quick decisions are made without understanding the entire problem. The next enemy is mediocrity. In issues like this, teams exhibit high levels of inefficiency, and finger pointing is very common. And lastly, with toxicity, well, this is about all results, and the results are great. It's why we do the things that we do, but not at the expense of team members. I worked for an organization in 2020. We were one of the first healthcare organizations to respond to the emergent needs of the community at the time. We soon set up our clinic, and within a few months, we were actually serving thousands of people daily. Now, the last thing we thought about was what our emergency governance structure looked like. We just got to work because we all knew the shared goal, and that was reopen the city and return to normal. Now, what are some of the things that you can use to combat these enemies? They say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And recognize there are some benefits to this, and that the poison can be the cure. So for bureaucracy, create a sense of urgency. In the book Leading Change by John Kotter, he lists create a sense of urgency as the first step in initiating change. And for anarchy, consider putting more structure and guardrails on decisions. Create a RACI who's responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And anchor your decisions to the corporate strategy, and then adapt your decision-making process as your organization matures. And with mediocrity, this is where guidance can be offered, needs to be offered to your team members. But remember to celebrate greatness, not just task completion. And for anarchy, this is where leaders need to create a culture of feedback. Now, this framework means different things to different people. And confronting these four enemies and balancing them can reduce decision-making friction and unlock the potential of your team members and your organization. Thank you.